Since the agricultural revolution, there were some people that said, we don't want to use tractors. Computers, don't want to use computers. Calculators, when I was a kid, calculators in the classroom, you're not allowed a calculator. Our brain is evolving. It doesn't evolve in 1 or 2 or 3 years. It takes many, many, many decades to evolve, generations. Whatever it is that we will not need to use because technology is available to us, there will be other opportunities for growth.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Thrive State Podcast. I am your host, Dr. V, triple board certified MD and performance and longevity expert. And on today's call, I have a very special guest, a thought leader and world-renowned expert in neuroscience. He's got multiple New York Times bestsellers, starred in The Secret, and today he shares with us the single most important trait to dive into in this rapid world of change. We have a change in administration here in the United States. We have AI changing the way we work, changing the way we live. And what do we need that's going to be most important for us to not just survive, but thrive in the midst of all this change that's happening? Well, one, it's resilience and adaptability. How do we start adapting to the rapid pace of change? And rooted in all this is how our brain works, how our brain can process the change, and how we could start to make new processes to rewire our brain to adopt and change quickly. So you're going to want to listen to this because the knowledge you have here will give you a head start in making sure that you maintain optimal health, longevity, peak performance, and also stay relevant to the rapid change that is approaching globally. Hi, my name is Dr. Kien Vuu, and if you're joining us for the first time, I have the distinct honor of welcoming thought leaders and experts around the world in the fields of longevity, of peak performance, of human optimization. And so it is really, truly an honor to bring you on this journey as I discover more information to give to you, and so that we could all level up together, because together we are our best medicine. If you are new here to the podcast, welcome again. I'd love to give a free gift to you to start your journey on performance and longevity. Go to thrivestatestarter.com to get a bunch of resources and to get a free toolkit on how you elevate to put yourself in a state of being for optimal health, longevity, and peak performance. Go to mythrivestate.com/toolkit to receive that. Now on to today's guest. Today's guest is none other than John Assaraf, a world-renowned mindset and success expert who's been featured on Larry King Live, Anderson Cooper, Ellen DeGeneres, and has built 5 multi-million-dollar companies and written 14 books, 2 of which has reached the New York Times bestseller list. He has starred in 16 movies, including The Secret and The Quest for Success. His work actually empowers individuals to shatter limitations, achieve their fullest potential through the neural-backed science tools like the Innercise app. You'll definitely want to listen to this because it's going to give you the tools that enter this year and beyond with a secret weapon to arm yourself to be in your optimal health, but also achieve the life and success that you want. Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy this conversation with myself and John Assaraf. John Assaraf, welcome to the Thrive State Podcast.
Dr. V, great to be with you.
You know what? You are icon and certainly a mentor without actually, personally mentoring me, but I've been following your work. You are good friends with so many of my friends, like Vishen Lakhiani, Jim Quick, Dr. Fab Mancini. So it's great to be able to share this session with you today.
Thank you. It's my joy, and thanks for welcoming me.
We do a part of the show called the 5 to Thrive. This is a game show style, rapid fire questions that are worth 1,000 points. If you win the 5 to Thrive, you get a healthy meal on me the next time we meet. And you're not too far away. You're down in San Diego. So let's see if you could bring home this prize. So John Assaraf, are you ready to play the 5 to Thrive?
Let's play.
Question number 1 is, what was your childhood dream?
That's an interesting one. Early childhood was really loving, caring, kind, up to 5 or 6. 6 to 18 was brutal. So my initial childhood dream was to make it out alive out of the neighborhood that I lived in, to get out of high school, which I hated. And that's why I left at grade 11.
1,000 points there. Question number 2 is, what one book, quote, or phrase entered your life that completely turned it around?
You become what you think about most. Napoleon Hill, read it in 1980. My first mentor gave it to me. And needless to say, back in those days, I was not thinking the right things or feeling the right things.
We'll tap into potentially the origins of that a little bit later. Question number 3 is, if I were to hand you a mic and put you in a stadium of 150,000 people and had you sing a karaoke song, what would that be?
Wow, that's a really, really good one. I imagine I got the first 2,000 points. Karaoke song would probably be something by the Bee Gees.
Oh, all right. I could
Staying
dance to that.
alive,
Yeah.
staying alive.
That's it.
That,
You've got the song. You got
that'll age me.
well, and I think as you sing it, it will make you younger as you sing it. Okay.
Good neurochemicals.
Absolutely. Question number 4 is, what is one non-negotiable you have for every single day of your life?
Waking up, opening my eyes, smiling, and asking myself, what 3 things am I grateful for?
Beautiful. 4,000 points. Here's the last one. Question number 5 is, what does John Assaraf want to be remembered for?
Being loving, caring, kind, and giving.
Oh, that's so good. Thank you. I could feel that in your energy. Thank you so much. And guess what? You win the 5 to Thrive, which means a healthy meal on me next time we meet. Let's make sure we get that within the next couple of months. I've got some bandwidth. I'd love to come down to San Diego. Now, before we dive into some of the deeper science in your personal story, I just wanted to be a little bit more poignant to the times. Just last week, RK Jr. just got confirmed to be Secretary of HHS. I was at the Maha inaugural ball. Now, I was in DC interviewing people around the street, and we have literally 50-50. People were very hopeful and optimistic, and then we have people that were fearful, concerned, worried. So one of the things I want to ask straight up is, we have change coming, and change going to evoke a large amount of emotions. If we want a particular goal in our life, we're probably going to be met with things that throw up so many emotions there. So how do we continue to move towards our goal and not let the emotions, because we do have part of the country going, man, this really sucks. I don't know about him. He's spewing out misinformation, but yet there's a positive message on health. How do you not let those emotions sort of hold you back for the person you want to become?
There's several things that are absolutely critical for us humans if we want to advance. Number 1, our own self-talk, how we talk to ourselves, because every word, as you know, releases those neurochemicals associated with the word, the sentence, etc. Part 1. Part 2 is emotional regulation. Now, most people, and I've taught literally over 1 million people, have never been taught that they have emotions, but they are not their emotions. And whenever we have this disempowering emotion or an empowering emotion, the question should really be asked of us is this: is the emotion controlling me, or am I controlling it? So who's controlling the ship? And most people don't have any clue that all emotions are triggered based on their belief systems, the implicit ones, which is their subconscious mind. That creates the electrical activity that releases the neurochemicals that cause this thing called a feeling, feelings and emotions. So when I am vehemently opposed to something or angry, I'm reacting based on something that's happened in my subconscious mind. Let's say you're talking about my belief about who he is, what he stands for, what his agenda is going to automatically activate certain emotions, feelings. And that's based on my experience, my references.
Yeah.
But we don't know all of him, just like you don't know all of me based on what you've seen on camera or through a distorted lens of social media or influencers that put people up or tear people down. So we have these distorted views of reality. So the first thing to understand is, no differently than a Hollywood actor or actress, since you're living in the LA basin, can control his or her emotions on demand and go, what the fuck are you talking about right now? That was fun. I just get so sorry. Dr. Cat, so sorry. I just let them in. I'm an emotional rapper. They can change their emotion on a dime because they're controlling their emotions and they have practiced. They're the Olympic athletes of emotional control. Everybody that's listening or watching, let me ask you a question. How many hours in your life have you practiced regulating your emotions? And most of you are going to say none. Now, we have an ancient brain living in a modern world. And this modern world, especially right now, is changing at blistering speeds. And the only human that likes change is a wet baby. The rest of us will resist it. And the way we resist is through what we say. The way we resist is how we feel. The way we resist is what we do. And whatever we are not in alignment with, we move away from or we fight. So most people just have not been trained to be able to feel an emotion and understand that you could say, what just triggered that? In a calm state, so that I could deactivate, for those of you that may be watching, deactivate my Frankie's monster brain that's going, well, what if he does this? What if she does that? What if I fail? What if I'm embarrassed, ashamed, ridiculed, judged, rejected? What if we go backwards? What if this? What if that? Well, okay, well, let's go to the Einstein brain that says, well, what if things get better? What if, because both polarities always exist, both possibilities exist. What if I'm resisting change because, like, I'm afraid of what if negative? So when we understand that we can have more mental and emotional control and regulation, self-talk, thinking, not thoughts, self-talk, thinking, and emotions, now I'm in a much better position to be inquisitive and to activate my curiosity circuit to say, okay, I may not like him or that or her or it. Now, let me see if I can change my perspective by altering my perceptions. And the way I can alter my perception is by adding other people's information to the information I have. And so just like we don't see what there is to see, we don't hear what there is to hear, and we don't feel everything there is to feel, we are creatures of habit. And so we react automatically at the highest or lowest level of training that we've had. So emotions are not the problem. Ignorance is the problem. I don't know how to do this. And now we can say, great, well, do you want to learn? And if you want to learn, we can make progress. If you don't want to learn, just stay being a victim. Stay stuck angry. Stay stuck in that state that you're in and watch what happens and see the world pass you by. Eric Hoffer wrote a great poem. He said, in times of change, the learners will inherit the earth while the learned wake up and realize they're living in a world that no longer exists. The change that we're having right now is the greatest shift in humanity's history, greater than any other shift we've ever made. But our brain hates change because of how it's wired, and it's not any fault of ours. You don't like it, speak to our creator and talk to her about it.
It is possible to change, and I'd like to talk about maybe the process of change. As I know from your history, you were born to a beautiful family, a hardworking family, but didn't have a lot of money and probably got into a lot of trouble in your early childhood.
I did.
Um,
It wasn't just because of the lack of money. My father was a gambler. He beat the shit out of me. He abused my mother. He was an alcoholic. And so I lived in this disempowering environment that created a lot of distrust, disbelief, dishonesty. That's why I lied, stole, cheated, did drugs, sold drugs, did breaking and entries. That was my reality. But I was able to make a shift because I had one mentor who shifted my perspective.
I think I heard this story multiple times where he asked you, number one, were you interested or committed to making the shift? And what that really took, because many people want the healthier life. They want to achieve success, but it feels a little difficult.
It is difficult. Hold on a second. It is difficult until it's not, right? It's difficult until it's not. And the challenge is most people haven't learned to follow a process and haven't learned how to go beyond their current limitations in a way that they feel like I'm making progress and I can do this. And we have so much potential, right? We have so much potential. But how do we bring out that potential? How do we bring that out? How do we experience that potential in ourselves? And we're not taught how to change, what we feel during change, what's normal, what's not. This morning I was at the gym And there was a father. He must have been, probably about a little younger than me. And he was with his son who was 13. His son was on the machine next to me. And his son was like talking to his father, "Hey, Dad, watch, I'm going to do 200 pounds right now." And this kid was like, pushing the weight, pushing the weight, pushing the weight, pushing the weight. And he got 2 reps. And I leaned over and said, "Way to go. That's how you get stronger." He goes, "Oh, thank you, sir." And then his father came by and his father was encouraging him to push yourself a bit. Then they put a little bit more weight and he did 1 rep. Then he put a little bit more weight and he hit his limitation. And so now he knew his limitation for that day. But if he comes back tomorrow or 2 days from now and consistently does what he needs to in a safe way, he will get stronger. And one of the rules around change is consistency compounds. So we don't have to change all at once. Our brain hates change. We resist change because of how the brain is wired. But there are methodologies to engage the brain better so it's a little bit easier. And if we teach somebody, hey, if you go to the gym and you do 10 reps, tomorrow, if you do enough weights, you're going to be a little bit sore. But what I want you to do is I want you to drink a lot of water, take some protein, make sure you get your amino acid profile to rebuild the muscle, make sure you get at least 1 gram of protein for each pound of body weight that you have, and watch the muscles grow. And you're going to get stronger and stronger and stronger, and make sure you get the rest. And here's the formula. And you see progress, you keep doing it. But most people don't have frameworks for growth and the change process to get from wherever they are in health, wealth, relations, career, business. They don't have a process with here's what you're going to think, here's what you're going to feel, here's what you're probably going to want to do, what I want you to do. Here are the counter strategies. So in the absence of the blueprint, they fall back to their highest level of skill in that circumstance. And the average person does not like mental, emotional, physical pain and discomfort. And that's okay. That's just normal. But you want growth of any kind, then you have to be willing to go through the slight discomfort of change. And if you don't, then you're going to end up in habit hell and you're going to keep reinforcing your current habits and patterns.
Let's talk a little bit about the biology of the Frankenstein mind. And this is playing such a huge role as we start to understand the default mode network and its implications in peak performance and longevity. But what is this primitive part of our brain and nervous system? And why do we need to be conscious of it if we truly want the life that we're here to have and deserve?
And I look at it like this. If somebody gave you the car of your dreams and it was in your driveway, whatever your car of your dreams is, and you never learned how to drive, it would be a beautiful piece of art in your driveway. But if you really want to use it, like you've got to learn, like, how do I turn the radio on? How do I steer better? How do I turn better? How do I drive better? Well, you have $100 billion phenomenal tool called your brain. And most people have no idea how it works. Whether you're talking about your default mode network or salience network or executive functioning network, these are 3 networks that you either are working with one or the other. They don't usually work at the same time unless you're doing some deep types of meditations and or psychedelics. So they don't talk to each other. But when we're talking about the evolution of our brain, think that our brain evolved in basically 3 stages. The brain stem and the lizard brain, as you and I talked about earlier, that's the instinctual brain: fight, flight, freeze, eat, have sex, kill, be killed, run away, and all that stuff. But then we developed that limbic system, or the mid part of our brain, and that's the emotional part of our brain. And now we can have some emotions, whether it's guilt, shame, disgust, love, fear, etc. But then the neocortex, the prefrontal cortex, developed. So now we have 3 different parts of the brain. There's many, many more. But I like to look at it as circuits that turn on or off. And what turns on, let's say your fear circuit. And why would your fear circuit go on? And what would turn on your motivational circuit, your motive for action circuit? Usually when one circuit turns on, 2 or 3 or 4 more turn on. So when we're talking about, I like to look at Einstein and Frankenstein, right prefrontal or left prefrontal cortex and right prefrontal cortex part of the brain. It's like gas and brakes. So the Einstein part of the brain is really all about imagination, executive functioning part of your brain. What do you want to achieve? How are you going to achieve it? When are you going to achieve it? Why should you achieve it? What are your options? What's the risk? What's the reward? Deductive reasoning. It's used for that. So it's like having that member of my orchestra does that. That's the instrument I use that for. But then we also have this Frankie's monster part of our brain. And Frankie's monster is not your enemy. Frankie loves you. But Frankie's your early warning detection mechanism based on 300,000 years of human evolution and the DNA information that you have and the experience in at a cellular level, plus your own experiences, plus your beliefs. And Frankie's monster is going to go, but what if you try that and you fail? What's the consequence? What if you're embarrassed, ashamed, ridiculed, judged, rejected, you lose money, time, and energy, right? And so Frankie balances out Einstein because Einstein's imagination. This is going to be great. We're going to love this. It's going to be amazing, etc. But Frankie's monster is there to protect you. And it's an early warning detection mechanism for safety, security, survival, avoidance of real pain or discomfort. And then all that is encircled, all right, with now do those things and conserve energy because the energy of the brain requires 25% of all of your calories. So now we're conserving energy for survival and safety. We want to avoid pain or discomfort that's real or imagined. We want to conserve energy. And oh, by the way, I want to gain pleasure and I want to achieve great stuff. So when we're looking to change, is extremely glucose capital, glucose intensive, right? The primary fuel for the brain, sugar. So we have this brain that wants to be a miser of energy. Change requires energy. So now we have opposing things happening in our brain that wants to keep us in our comfort zone, even though we want change. So these are all like neuromechanics or the brain's mechanics of how it works. We have to remember I am not my left or right prefrontal cortex. I'm not my emotions. I'm not my feelings. I'm not my behaviors. I have a brain. And this goes into maybe a little bit of metaphysical stuff, right? And that is, well, who are you? A lot of people say, well, I'm John. No, that's your name. Oh, I'm John. Well, no, that's your body. And you start going, well, is there something other than, I call the brain an organism, not an organ anymore, just because it's malleable, pliable, growing, pruning. Some people call it, well, I am my soul or I am my spirit. I said, great. Can spirit or soul direct the brain and the body? I believe yes. Now I'm going to dive a little bit out of neuroscience into another realm. But for me, the way that I look at it is I have a brain, I have a body, I have organs, I have whatever tools I have physically in my physical senses and my non-physical senses. And I get to use those to trade my moments, my life, for the things that I want to have, do, be, experience, give, etc. And in 2025, unless you're trying to colonize Mars, every other how-to already exists. So now the real question is, as it relates to your health, wealth, relationships, career, business, are you committed to cutting out sugar so you're healthier, happier, more energetic? Are you committed to eating better for energy, health, vitality, longevity? Are you committed to stopping your addictions to whatever it might be? Are you committed to releasing certain things and starting other things? Because interested people do not change. They come up with stories, reasons, and excuses why it's not convenient. It's just a life of excuses and stories, but they live in this vicious cycle of doom, I call it. Is they hope and pray and wish for one thing, but then they repeat all the thought, emotions, and behavioral patterns to reinforce what they don't want any more of. So the real question is, are you happy with what you're trading your life for? Like if you're to look in the mirror and you're saying, hey, look yourself naked. Are you happy with the way you look? Are you proud of the way you look? Yes, no. Do you want to be healthier physically, mentally, emotionally, internally, blood work included, of course, since you're functional medicine. I've been into it for many, many, many years. Do you want to get better? Yes or no? Yes. Okay. Are you committed to getting better? Yes or no? And as soon as you say, well, what was it going to take? You're not committed. Because being committed says I'll do whatever the F it takes to achieve the outcome I want, ethically, professionally, of course. I tell people, most people, they have a drug of choice around achieving their health goals. You know what the drug of choice is? Opium. They hope. Hope and prayer does not achieve goals on its own. So when we get into how do I get my brain How do I get my brain to comply with the vision and goals, desires that I have? That's a really empowering question. How can I get my brain to comply? Now we can get into, okay, what does my brain need to quiet Frankie's monster down, to activate Einstein so it can help me with the imagination and the path, but to activate that nucleus accumbens, an insula part of my brain, to release enough dopamine along with the stress to create this energy in motion called my body to move me towards what I do want and away from what I either don't want anymore or what I'm ready to release and give up. Now we're asking ourselves different questions. And the power of our questions will determine the power of our focus and the neurochemicals that are released in the body that either causes this molecular structure to take action or to sit on the sofa and watch another Netflix series.
I hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. If you are, I just wanted to let you know, join our community. There's so many free resources and a great community of people that desire health, happiness, human potential, to have more in their life, more health, more energy. And when you have those two things together, you could create more happiness, more abundance, whether it be financial, romantic, all these things in your life. And if you're just starting out, you don't know where to go, just sign up for thrivestatestarter.com, because in there you're going to get a bundle of information that includes a longevity ebook, a longevity and performance resource guide, lecture notes that come from my keynotes at Google, at Fortune 500 companies, all the insights in that keynote in lecture slide form given to you. And then finally, breathwork. I share 3 powerful breathwork exercises to access calm, which really gives you clarity and peace during the day, to access energy if you need to wake up and really motivate yourself, and finally a breathwork routine that you could do every single morning so that you could be very intentional with how you create that day. You could find all this stuff delivered free to your inbox at thrivestatestarter.com. And our community is growing. If you want to be a part of a community of people that desire the Thrive State, that are really in Thrive State themselves, and help other people along with that, you could be a part of the community. You can get group coaching from me. We do breathwork sessions, meditation sessions, and you also get to drop in and participate in podcasts in the future. You could find more about the community at mythrivestate.com. That's mythrivestate.com. So check out those resources. You're not going to be disappointed. And please enjoy the remainder of this podcast. Absolutely. I mean, as you're talking here, I'm really looking at Frankenstein's monster. And what I love about what you said earlier is he loves you.
He loves you.
There's some people in the personal development space that says you should hate it. But I think if you were to hate that part of yourself, the negative talk that's just trying to keep you safe, you're hating a part of yourself.
Well, yeah, it's not a negative part of you. It's a positive part of you. Think about it this way. I like to use stories or visuals. Imagine you're driving your car. You have one of the newer cars, 2020 and beyond. And you're driving your car and all of a sudden you hear beep. Have you ever looked at the dashboard, seen a light, you take a hammer and hit the light? Have you ever done that in your life when a light's gone on in your dash? No, don't you get curious? Hey, I wonder what turned on that light. Oh my God, I'm low in my left front tire. It's like at 30% below. Oh, I better pull into a gas station. For example, fear circuit activates. Don't you want to know what activated it? When your lazy circuit activates, when you procrastinate, which is an effect, when you self-sabotage that diet, that exercise, that nutrition, that gym, when you self-sabotage, it's not because you don't want the result. It's one of Frankie's responsibilities is to keep you safe and in your comfort zone. And it starts to have you rationalize, tell yourself rational lies whenever you are of that comfort zone. And it causes you to eat more than you should, or to stop going to the gym, or to do X, Y, or Z. It works like a thermostat, in your car or home. There's a setting on a thermostat. right? So setting on the thermostat, setting on in your car, what is it, 68 degrees, 70 degrees? If hot air comes into your car, doesn't the cybernetic mechanism, the thermostat setting, send a signal, okay, through the electrical system in the car to turn on the air conditioning? And let's say it gets too cold, doesn't the setting pick up a deviation and send an electrical signal back to the heater in the car and turn on the heat? These are automatic sensors in cars or animals in some machines. And in us, we have things called a psycho-cybernetic mechanism, which was first brought to light by Dr. Maxwell Maltz in his book called Psycho-Cybernetics back in the 70s. And so we understand the mechanics of why does this circuit turn on or off. And as an MD, you know this to be true, right? Here's what you know to be true. Functionally, every brain works the same. Functionally. Now, of course, there's anomalies. But functionally, every car works the same. Some are electric, some are gas. Functionally, a bicycle works the same. Functionally, a hand works the same. So if functionally brains work the same, the changes are this. Let's say I introduce to the people watching or listening right now, I say, I want you to imagine that you hear some noise in the room you're in right now. And Dr. V, you can imagine this. And out of the corner of your eye, you see this thing slithering towards you really, really fast. It looks to be about 12 feet long, 200 pounds, and it's like slithering towards like an albino python, and it is coming right to you right now. And everybody else, if you imagine that right now, for some of you, you'd be going, oh my God, let me get my cell phone so I can take a selfie. For others, I've already released cortisol that you're feeling on edge. And there's no snake. I just used words to activate neurons in your brain to create electrical activity to release cortisol. So what triggers your fear circuit may not trigger mine. What triggers your motivational circuit may not trigger mine. What triggers your stress circuit may not trigger mine. So the circuits and how it works is the same, but what triggers it is different for everybody. But let's say you have a mother or father who had certain beliefs about snakes. Chances are you believe the same thing. And unless you've had an experience that's opposite that, where you've been, let's say, in a classroom, and they brought in little snakes, and you got to play with them, and then you play with bigger and bigger and bigger snakes. You went to the zoo, and the zoologist talked to you about which ones are venomous and which ones are not, and which ones you can hold and which ones you cannot. Now you had a much better understanding. When you see a snake, whether it's on TV or in person, you may not react the same way as somebody who's been taught to be petrified of snakes. So I don't remember if it was Socrates or one of the great philosophers says, all of this begins with knowing thyself. Know thyself. We're talking about personal development. This is how I develop, and I have to learn how to change. And we're talking about change. We're actually talking about habits. We're talking about the cerebellum. We're talking about the implicit memory system, that has associations that trigger a variety of different networks and circuits in our brain. And you weren't born with habits. You weren't born with beliefs. You weren't born with self-image. You weren't born with knowledge. You weren't born with skills. You weren't born with confidence. You weren't born with character traits. You weren't born with an identity, but you developed all of these patterns that are now automatic.
So good. What I want people to walk away from really is just the awareness of the different components of our brain, recognizing, as you said earlier, that our emotions and our thoughts are not us, and that there is a part of our machinery that may try to rationalize us from not being the best part of ourselves. And as we start to build more awareness there, you've got an excellent program, an Innercise app that you actually break down the anatomy and the frameworks to let you know that change is possible. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that?
Literally 44 years ago, I started to meditate, visualize, sit, and pay attention to the thoughts that I had, which now is about 6,200 thoughts a day is what the new research says we have. Observe the negative thoughts. Where did that come from? Observe the positive thoughts. How does it cause me to feel? So I realized that I was doing something called innercising, whether I was visualizing the success of a free throw when I played, basketball in high school or hockey, visualizing scoring a goal, visualizing being on defense, and visualizing myself. Visualization is a simulation. When I used affirmations for my achieving my goals, I'm so happy and grateful for the new fact that I am achieving blank for health, blank, blank for wealth, blank, blank, blank for my companies. I didn't believe it at first, but I knew, and I know now, that I was firing the neurons in my brain, and the neurons that fire together, wired together, and repetition is what makes permanent. Practice makes permanent. And it's not even permanent, it's softwired. So I developed an entire ecosystem of brain training exercises for health, wealth, sales, business, leadership, entrepreneurship, 650 of them so far for every category. And I created an app that people could listen to these brain training exercises that use all the best methodologies to fire and wire and make change easier, faster, and better. And then we have videos as well in the app to help people really strengthen their mind and achieve more of their potential and make it easier to change and accept their power that we all have.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for that because my audience understands a little bit about kind of the default mode network. And because it's our fear and survival mode of the brain, it's intimately tied to our hippocampus, our memory centers, and our amygdala, our fear centers. And so it remember our past traumas. Some people go through drugs, divorce, abuse, neglect in the family, which are bigger traumas. Other people not being seen, not being heard, not feeling safe. And not feel those are the primal needs of every human being to feel safe, to feel loved, and feel accepted. And when we feel like we don't get those things as children, we start to adapt certain behaviors that might not be us, these fear-based behaviors.
Of course. Well, again, the number one priority of the brain, survival and safety, right? And if you think about it, that's the species, the human species, survival and safety above all else. The entire ecosystem is built for survival, safety, avoidance of pain or discomfort, and then energy conservation. So that's the hierarchy of the brain, and then gain pleasure. The thing that's really important, even around inner size, is when we talk about the hippocampus, part of the brain, which is really geared towards short-term memory. So when we hear something once, it's like short-term memory, and we have very, very limited short-term memory. But with spaced repetition, things move from the hippocampus into the cerebellum, right? It's kind of like the seat of our consciousness, but the cells in the brain, the average cell will connect to about 7,000 other cells. But in the cerebellum, it'll connect up to 100,000 other cells. Because we've taken the time to impress stuff into this other part of the brain, the long-term implicit part of the brain, now what we do with Innercise is through spaced repetition, following it up with the emotions and the behavior. Now we're instructing our brain. This is important. See, our brain is really, really smart, but we have to instruct it the right way. So if I do something once or twice or three times, the brain goes, okay, great, you're not really that committed to it. But as soon as I override, I feel like quitting. I have a rule. Here's a rule. This everybody could use. Whenever I hear myself, I really don't feel like it. I've trained myself now to say, I know, you're still going to do a bit anyway. I don't want to go to the gym this morning. I know, I understand. You're going anyway. I don't want to I don't want to eat that. No, I understand, but you're doing this anyway. So I've learned how to override the I don't feel like it. I don't want to. I am tired. And I train my brain, inner size, to override the I don't want to. Because I know that's the part of my brain that wants to be lazy and to stay in my comfort zone. And nothing good happens in your comfort zone if you want to grow, other than more of the same. So innercising is a way to train your brain better so that it works for you instead of you being its slave.
So beautiful. Really quick question that I'm curious to ask. I mean, so much innercising is really kind of doing the mental, emotional work of change.
Yeah,
Now we've got this huge tool of AI. Some
absolutely.
people say back in the day, we used to be able to remember streets and how to navigate things, and the phone took that away. How is AI going to change this? And how do we leverage AI for our personal growth and good versus having another technology that could replace this beautiful one that we currently have.
Since the agricultural revolution, there were some people that said, we don't want to use tractors. Computers, don't want to use computers. Calculators, when I was a kid, calculators in the classroom, you're not allowed a calculator. Our brain is evolving. It doesn't evolve in 1 or 2 or 3 years. It takes many, many, many decades to evolve, generations. Whatever it is that we will not need to use because technology is available to us, there will be other opportunities for growth. Let me ask you a question. What would you prefer? Better math skills that a computer could have, or increase your intuition by 500%?
Intuition.
Oh, how come? Like, isn't your intuition good enough? What would you prefer? To memorize every street in your neighborhood, or to be 500% calmer all the time?
I'll take the calm.
Right. So whenever we're like, we cannot focus on what we might lose and there's certain things we just no longer need. And we have tools. Listen, would you give up your car right now? If it was up to humans, Henry Ford would have built faster horses. All right. So what happens whenever there's this change, there are those that are on the tip of the spear of the change because they see the benefits. Now, the AI discussion, I've been teaching AI for 2.5 years now to all of my students. I was introduced to it by Kien Vuu Lee, who actually just released DeepSeek. I got an intro to it like 5, 6 years ago, and I was like, oh my God. Now, what happens with AI and these computers, what's happening with AI is mind boggling, right? And I have inside the app, by the way, I have my AI coach. You can ask it any question you want, and it's been trained with 1,000 hours of my coaching that you can ask at any time instead of paying me my $10,000 an hour coaching fee. So it's in there. But if you think about AI, most of the future movies that we have seen, it's all dystopian futures. But what if this AI, where these robots, our little agentic robots, they are going to be IQs of 400 to 1,600 in every category in humankind's history by the end of this year. The difference between Einstein and a chimpanzee will be the difference between us now and these AI. So you can say, oh my God, this year we will be the second smartest species on the planet. Get your head around that. Now, is it possible that we will have a dystopian future? Yes, it's possible. It's also possible that there are certain individuals around the world, governments, countries, people, that will get nuclear warfare and blow up certain parts of the world or the whole world. It's possible. But there's also the possibility that it will create a utopian future for us and future generations. Now, in the middle of all change, it's no different than what a caterpillar goes through to become a butterfly.
Yep.
It's goopy, metamorphosis, sticky, goopy, ugly, and people don't like it. Now, here's the question. Will people use AI for nefarious reasons? Yes. People have already called my children mimicking my voice.
Wow.
Okay. People have already called my bank mimicking my voice. All right. So will that happen? Not only will it, it's already happening. Scammers will use any means possible to scam, but there's an evolutionary process to change. And so for example, because that has happened, let's say somebody called my wife and said, use my voice, which I already have cloned, right? Said, hey, honey, listen, I only have 1 minute. I need to give me the last 4 digits of my social. It's in you should have it. Because right now people can get your social number, black web, they can get so if they need certain bits of information. So my wife already has a response and she has a question to ask. Sure, sweetheart, I can get it for you right now. What's the answer to this question? Oh, do you not have that with your family? Well, you better get it. And I'm not meaning you, anybody who's listening. So I'm taking my precautionary measures for this new era. I already have agent AI in my company, helping with customer service, helping with finance, helping with marketing to make us 5, 10, 20 times more effective, efficient, to help more people. Oh, you're not doing that? Well, how come? So with all of the amazing potential, there is a downside too. You can use nuclear war or nuclear power to blow up and kill hundreds of thousands or millions of people, or you could use it to light up a city. But you know what? I can use this pen to write another great book, or I can stab you in the eye with this and puncture your brain and kill you. I can cut a tomato with my knife upstairs, or I can cut you up with it. So we can't just look at one without the other, because the law of polarity says there cannot be an up without a down, an inside without an outside. It just doesn't exist. But the change is real, and everybody who's listening, pay close attention. You better be an adaptationist right now, and you better get change ready now.
We'll leave it right there. The tools that you have really allow people to understand the framework, to know the science, frameworks, techniques on the science of change and human potential. So how do people find out more about you, your work, and how do they get access to the Innercise app?
Yeah, you can hop on to the App Store, and it's on Google and on Apple Play or Apple. You can go get more information if you want on innercise.com. I'm on Instagram, Reels. I'm all over social media. Yeah, johnassaraf.com. MyNeurogym.com is my company. I've got a couple of New York Times best-selling books. My camera, I think my book is there. My book is there. My book, Innercise, the Innercise, my New York Times best-selling book, Having It All. If you're a business owner, my other New York Times best-selling book, The Answers, on Amazon. And I do a lot of free stuff. We have some coaching programs, but just get into the orbit of the dialogue and let us serve you as best as we can.
Beautiful. My very last question to you, John, with everything that you've learned, all the tools that you have, the life lessons you picked up along the way, what has been your best medicine?
Meditation, bar none. I start off every day, as I mentioned earlier, by waking up and deliberately smiling to release the positive neurochemicals, being grateful, getting up, putting my feet on the ground. And then I start my day off with meditation, followed by Innercise, followed by reviewing my goals for my life, health, wealth, relations, career, business, followed by exercise, followed by a power smoothie, shower, shave, work, and help people and contribute.
Well,
So
thank you so much for being.
meditation allows you to just remember to be and to be able to pay attention to the noise, and then to calm the noise down, but to also be mindful and surrender to it. And it gives you such insight into your physiology, your mindset, your state. And when you can realize that we're magical, my goodness, we are magical.
We've just scratched the surface of that part of the conversation. So we need to have you back, the crux of my work as well. John Assaraf, thank you so much for your wisdom, for your beautiful energy, and for your life's work. And thanks for joining us on the Thrive State podcast.
Thanks, Dr. V. Great being with you.
I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Thrive State podcast. And if you're finding that this content is really helping you and your family members, please consider supporting our mission and our cause of elevating health, happiness, and human potential for people all over the world. You can do so by making sure that you subscribe to this podcast, sharing it with your friends and family members, and leaving us a 5-star review wherever podcasts are heard. All these things are going to really help elevate the show and to give us the resources to continue to bring more content just like this to yourself as well as the people that you love. If you haven't already, you might want to consider joining our community. We actually have a community where people get to engage with me in group sessions where we do breath work, meditation, where we do challenges together, really to be able to get us access to health, happiness, human potential, so that we could have longevity and performance in our life as well. You can check out our community at mythrivestate.com. That's mythrivestate.com. And if you haven't already, pick up a copy of my book, Thrive State. It really gives you all the tools, the pillars that you need to create a blueprint to control the energetics of your life. Who are you? How do you show up in the world? The choices that you consistently make create an energy in your body, and you can control this. And when you can control that, you also control the messages you give to your DNA that gives you access, again, to optimal health, longevity, and peak performance. And let me also just share a free gift to you. If you haven't already, please pick up my longevity and performance bundle where I share lecture notes, ebooks, breathwork exercises, and longevity and
performance resources at thrivestatestarter.com. Thank you so much for being a part of this community. Thank you for helping us grow. Remember always, my friends, that you are your best medicine.